We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Hello, men, and welcome to a special 4th of July edition of Truck Talk Thursday. I know I'm getting this out late to you guys, but better late than never. It's been a busy last few weeks for me, and but I've been thinking a lot about the 4th. My family and I went and celebrated. Actually, just my wife and I went out and celebrated last night. And there's a thing that we do, and we try to do it every year. We basically go out to what's an area in Charlotte called South Park. It's kind of a ritzy, upscale kind of area, not close to where we live. But it's a nice big mall there. They got a big park and all that kind of stuff. But they do a symphony there, and the symphony's there, and it's a gigantic lawn, and the symphony's playing under this, I don't know, canopy of some kind, and it's just beautiful, fantastic music. It's very patriotic. It's very Americana still, which has actually surprised me. I think the first time we went was a few years ago, and we open up with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we sing songs like God Bless America and America the Beautiful, and many of these things talk about God, especially the God Bless America, if you hadn't heard that one and you weren't able to figure that out on your own. And a lot of the songs really kind of resonate with us because they come from a time period when American pride and nationalism and even some of our more warring days, were amongst us. And it just fills you with all kinds of good things. And there's fireworks afterwards and whatnot. I see these people getting up and they're leaving during the thing, and the fireworks are halfway over and they're trying to get out and get to their cars and whatever else. And I get it, some of them got young kids, but man, I just love to take it in. I could just sit there and just listen to the music and watch the fireworks for another probably 30 minutes or so. But I noticed some things. And, I don't know if this is just indicative of the culture where we are. I kind of wanted to do an America 2019 kind of state of things as I see them. I had a very small slice of American window last night. And I'm not excluding myself from any of the things that I saw. But, you can't help but think 50 years ago, an event like this would have been a very different scene. Not only just visually, how people dressed, how people took care of themselves, that kind of stuff. What they showed, what they didn't show, those kinds of things. But also the way they interacted with their kids. The fact that they actually knew the words to some of the songs. I mean, the amount of people that were not singing during the Pledge of Allegiance was staggering. The amount of people that didn't know the words to God Bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Right? The amount of people that didn't know America the Beautiful. And just sat there and, sometimes on their phones and that kind of stuff, but just sort of sat there and paid attention to it, but didn't really engage with it. And I knew the words to most of it. I didn't know the second verse of America the Beautiful, even though we've been through it before at this very concert. It's fantastic. Talks a lot about people coming over here and, in the early days of America. And so, you've got that combined with this kind of weird, funky state of non-nationalism, lack of patriotism, heightened individualism, all going on at the same time. And so I just wanted to park here for a little bit. Obviously, I can't cover all the things that are happening in America right now. We've got all this stuff with Nike and Gillette and whatever else is going on. That kind of stuff, these guys are just trying to stay relevant, and they're going to put spicy stuff out there that just gets people to freak out a little bit. They want your clicks. They want your comments. They want to be present in the lives of your news feed. That's how it's done these days. They've learned that from watching politicians and other people who do these kind of campaigns. But in terms of individualism and how that's winning out over nationalism or patriotism, there's a big impact here. So if we think about nationalism, national pride, my country for the sake of my country, right? That was kind of where, in many ways, America started. It's also where a lot of countries have gotten themselves in trouble. If your country begins, as long as your country is fighting for good things and it wants good things, then nationalism is fine. National pride is fine. Patriotism is a bit different. Patriotism is my country for the sake of my fellow man in my country, because I am of my country, right? And for the sake of what my country's dealing with right now. For example, one of the probably the greatest times we've had in recent history of sign-ups for the U.S. military was after 9/11. 9/11 happens, we get hit by terrorists. We're just figuring out what a terrorist is, okay? Now, some of you guys are young enough that you've kind of grown up with this knowledge of what terrorism is. Back in my day, terrorism was just like almost like a fictional thing where people just kind of blew up planes and sometimes buildings, but you didn't really know like if it was associated with anything other than like either they wanted money or they were just crazy or maybe some kind of religious thing, but there was nothing really parked on like Islamic terrorism or anything like that. But anyhow, after 9/11, guys are like, let's go kick some tail. I want to sign up. I want to fight. And it's not just I want to fight for the sake of America. It was I want to fight to protect my family. I want to fight to avenge the fallen. I want to fight to get rid of this scourge of the earth, the terrorist. And, we did some tail kicking for sure. We got rid of a lot of terrorists. But, how that goes. But that's patriotism. That's patriotism in action. So nationalism would be, I'm going to go fight because my country's called to it. We'd see some form of a type of nationalism, but really more like a statesism or a kind of back in the Civil War. I'm going to fight for the North because I live in the North. I'm going to fight for the South because I live in the South. Lee did that, right? He went and fought for Virginia because that was his home state. And he basically got called up by his home state, even though he wasn't living there at the time, got called up by his home state to go and fight. He didn't actually want to fight in the war, but he did it because of that sort of, status kind of, I'm bound to something because of the thing itself. And we're moving away from that. We've moved away from that. And we have periods of patriotism. We don't really have much nationalism at all, except by probably radicals that are trying to keep that alive. I'm not a fan of nationalism. I am a fan of patriotism. I'm also a fan of individualism, and so were the founding fathers. And here's the rub. On the one hand, the U.S., the United States was founded to be the best place to be an individual. If you wanted to come here, pursue your dreams, your religion, your desires, your business for your sake, you could do that. And you still can. United States was founded for people who wanted to be individualists. But there was also an understanding of us as the collective. That's why we say we the people, right? When we talk about we the people, we're making declarations. We're doing this as a united front. And one of the things that's happening here, with our strong degree of not just individualism, but a society that has become so incredibly self-focused that we don't recognize our sense of responsibility outside of ourselves. And so this has obviously been heightened by all the media and all the entertainment choices we have, the phones we have in front of our faces most of the day, screens that we're on, the little worlds that the virtual worlds that we collect ourselves in. Excuse me. And so we can be not only individualistic, meaning I have my own dreams and desires that I want to pursue. We can be truly selfish people. And that's going to cause a lot of problems. It is causing problems. We see that. And when we divorce ourselves from the reality that we are part of something greater, whether we've divorced ourselves from it because intentionally or unintentionally, speaking of using the word divorce, because of the number of divorces, because of the number of broken homes, people aren't grounded into their families like we used to be. We're not grounded into the place we grew up. We're not grounded into our surnames, our last names, our heritage, where that came from. We find ourselves a lot of times in our 40s, maybe a little bit older, kind of researching that kind of stuff because we're trying to find some grounding. And furthermore, when we remove ourselves even from our very communities, and we become part of these kind of virtual online communities, and we detach ourselves from our families emotionally because we got our nose in our computers, when we remove ourselves from the history of our nation, and we want to say things like, I wasn't a part of that Civil War stuff. I didn't have anything to do with slavery. I didn't have anything to do with fighting, for this or fighting for that or that war or this thing or the killing of Indians, right? We remove ourselves from those contexts because we want to kind of purify ourselves, right? We don't want to be associated with any of the negative things or things that could have been seen as negative. But the healthy cultures, and how America's done this really up to probably the last 15, 20 years, is that we have a healthy association with things that have happened in the past because they ground us. We pull out of those things, even, the Civil War, whether you're fighting for the South, whether you're fighting for the North, whether you're part of some terrible, raid of, Indians, whatever it happens to be. We pull out certain things of that and we say, look at the heroism here. Look at the courage here. Don't we want to have some of that? Aren't I proud to have some of that in my lineage? Yeah, it wasn't done perfectly. When America talked about we the people, we still hadn't really figured out what people were yet, right? I mean, we didn't include black people, at least not slaves. We didn't include Indians. It was like we the people, like the sort of learned white man of the day. And we still didn't like everybody. I mean, like Irish didn't like Italians or Jews and everybody, people had issues with Indians in some cases, but not all Indians, but some. And then, of course, black people had their issues as well. We had a lot of stuff to figure out. That's part of our history. And we ought to own that. We ought to be proud of that. And we can continue going back even further before we even came to America and say, that's part of my history as well. It's okay to screw up. We can still move forward. We can still do good even in the midst of incredible failure, incredible, just a great degree of a lack of humanity. Good can be accomplished. And but when we lose this grounding, guys, like we are, it's going to lead to the very things that we're seeing in society today. I was looking at a news report. I don't know, CNBC, something like that. I don't remember where it came from. It just popped up on my feed. But it seems to be in line with the things that I hear, and probably the things that you hear as well from millennials. And that is that many of them are dealing with, this was a psychologist or a counselor that dealt with hundreds and hundreds of millennials over the years. And there are some common themes that come up. And a lot of it has to do with anxiety. I don't know if I'm going to have what it takes to get married. I don't know if I've chosen the right career path. I don't know if I'm going to be a good father or a good mother. I don't know if I'm really going to be able to be an adult. If I can really do this adult thing, family life, all that kind of stuff, hold down a job, be happy in a career, all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of anxiety that's coming with that. And we see this even overflowing into things like the gender discussions. Well, I don't know if I'm a man or a woman. I look in the mirror and I look at my DNA and I should be one or the other, but I'm not, or I don't feel right about it. I don't know who to mate with anymore, right? It's not even we've gotten to the place, guys, now where it's not like people are saying I'm a man trapped in a woman's body or I'm a woman trapped in a man's body. It's so much obvious gender confusion. They just stay in a state of confusion. Don't call me a gender. Don't try to identify me as a particular, male or female or whatever the case is. We've even moved past that. People are saying, I don't know what I am. And it's okay for you to, be confused as well. Let's all just be in a state of confusion. And it's really just an overflow, an outpouring, just the consequences of an ungrounded people. And unfortunately, that's a big part of the state of America. When we look at our election stuff, right? We've got politicians that couldn't be probably more different from each other. We talk about, probably the most left-wing politician, presidential candidate coming up. We got the most right-wing presidential candidate coming up. And America would look at these people and go, I don't want either of them, but we will vote for one or the other, and we will be fairly divided in how we go about it. It's a mass state of confusion, mass state of being ungrounded in principles and values and the things that ought to be, and for so long have been taken for granted and felt timeless. They're not anymore. And so what is all this leading up to? What does this mean? Is this my rah-rah, happy 4th of July speech? Kind of. Look, there's work to be done. That's what it comes down to. What you need to understand is that when you walk outside of your door and you go to work every day, there's a very good chance that you are one of the most grounded individuals that you know. Now, this would change depending on where you work, those kinds of things. But there's a very good chance that, assuming you listen to the Wolf and Iron podcast, you're trying to better yourself, you believe in traditional things like marriage, like gender, you believe in the principles that are laid out in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, you believe in liberty, you believe in limited government, you believe in the founding principles of this nation, you're one of the most grounded individuals in America. And you have a tremendous amount of responsibility. You and I both do. A tremendous amount of responsibility to kind of hold things down. I don't mean like in a negative way, obviously. I mean like in a positive way. Because people are worried. They have anxiety. They're using medication like never before to try and quell the fact that they can't sleep at night for all kinds of reasons. The fact that they don't know what gender they are, that they don't know if they can ever be happy in one relationship, that they don't know if they can ever focus on a particular career and have a regular job, right? They need the strength of men. And we're here to bring that. That's what Wolf and Iron's about. This is an individual pursuit. Your growth as a man is an individual pursuit for the betterment of the external, for other people. You and I, we bring our strength to bear on situations that other people are lost in. And that's a big part of it, right, guys? That's a big part of the state of things today, America, 2019. I know it's not the rah-rah speech that you're looking for. It's not the typical thing that we hear, but it's what we see, right? It's the things that aren't being said. I'll tell you what, though. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud of our heritage. I'm proud of the corrections in history that we've made. I'm proud of the contributions to history we've made. And I'm proud of where I think we can be in the next generation. One of the things that often comes with this kind of pendulum swing, the anxiety, the ungroundedness, the weakness, all that stuff that we've been seeing, we've been talking about, is that the pendulum eventually swings back the other way. Once the millennial generation really gets into adulthood, and for them it's probably going to take a little bit longer, maybe another 10 years. Many of them are already realizing it. But once it happens, they're going to go, oh my gosh, this is not good. Let's make a difference. Let's go back to some of the things, not all the things, but some of the ways we used to think and we used to believe. I don't want my kids to wait until they're 45 years old to get married. I don't want my kids to experience some of the things that I experienced. The anxiety, the pressure, the missing out on real life because I'm so engaged in the digital world, that kind of stuff. And we're going to have a lot of people on our side. You guys, you're going to lead the way. All right, fellas, happy 4th of July to you. I appreciate you. Talk to you next time.